Hey everyone, and welcome. Today, we're going to jump back in time, way back, over 2,500 years to witness a game-changing revolution in how humans think. This is the story of the birth of Western philosophy. It's about how we went from explaining the world with gods and monsters to using logic and observation. Let's dive in.
Think about it. For most of human history, if you asked, hey, why does the sun travel across the sky, or why do the seasons change, the answer you'd get would be a story, a myth. The world was explained by gods, goddesses, and their epic dramas. But then, in ancient Greece, a handful of thinkers came up with a brand new tool, one that would change absolutely everything.
So let's get into it. This is a huge shift, right? We're talking about the incredible move from a world explained by stories to a world explained by, well, by systems. And this slide really breaks it down for us. On one side, you've got Mythos. This is knowledge that comes from tradition, from divine authority, from stories. It's all about explaining the why with these big, sweeping narratives. But on the other side, you've got Logos. This is a totally new way of doing things, based on logical arguments, on what you can actually see and observe. Logos isn't asking why in a story sense, it's asking how in a cause and effect sense. It was a complete 180. Okay, so if you're going to try and explain the entire world using reason, where do you even begin? Well, for these first philosophers, the quest started with a hunt for the Arche. Now, this is a super important idea. They had this belief that underneath all the crazy variety of the world, trees, rocks, clouds, us, there had to be one single fundamental stuff or principle that everything was made of. So this hunt for the Arches, it basically gave us our first ever scientific theories. And to see how it all went down, we've got to go to the ancient Greek city of Miletus. This place was basically ground zero for this new way of thinking. And here's our guy, Thales. He's often called the first philosopher, and for really good reason. His big idea wasn't just what he thought the Arche was. No, the revolutionary part was that he even suggested the universe could be understood without bringing gods into it. He was looking for a natural explanation for a natural world. So what was his big answer? Water. Now that might sound kind of simple to us today, but you got to appreciate his reasoning. He looked around and saw that all life needs water. He saw that water could be a solid, a liquid, and a gas. He saw it was essential and it was transformable. The most important part? His conclusion was based on what he could see, not on some divine dream. And here's where things get really cool, because this is the second big innovation of Logos: debate. A student of Thales, Anaxagoras, looked at his teacher's theory and pretty much said, "Good try, but I think you're wrong." He proposed that the Arche was actually air, arguing it was even more basic. He figured through processes like thickening and thinning, air could become everything else. Honestly, the answer itself isn't what matters most here. It's the method. One thinker building on and criticizing another. That's the start of science. So just when you thought this whole reason thing was taken off, bam, it hits a wall. A huge philosophical brick wall. A new thinker came along with this devastatingly simple argument from pure logic, and it threatened to prove that the world we see every day is basically a complete lie. Okay, so check out this quote from a guy named Parmenides. It sounds almost silly. It's so obviously true, right? What exists, exists. What doesn't exist, doesn't. And you can't just make something out of absolutely nothing. Simple. But Parmenides followed the strict logic of that statement to a conclusion that was anything but simple. And here it is. If you can't get something from nothing, then being born or coming into being is impossible. And if what exists can become what doesn't exist, then dying or passing away is also impossible. So, logically, reality must be one single, eternal, unchanging thing. All that stuff we see, motion, change, different things everywhere, according to Parmenides' pure logic, it's all just one grand illusion. Now, to back us up, his student Zeno came up with these brilliant puzzles, or paradoxes. The most famous one is this: Achilles and the Tortoise. Imagine a race. The super-fast Achilles gives the slow tortoise a head start. To catch up, Achilles has to get to where the tortoise was. But by the time he gets there, the tortoise has moved a little bit forward. So now he has to get to that new spot. But by the time he does, the tortoise has moved again, and again, and again, forever. Logically, it seems like he can never, ever catch up. We know he does in the real world, of course, but Zeno's point was to show that our logical ideas about motion might be totally broken. This just created a massive crisis. So what do? Do you trust pure, airtight reason, which tells you that change is an illusion? Or do you trust your own eyes, which tell you every single moment of every day that, yeah, stuff moves? This was the huge problem that the next generation of thinkers had to solve. And solve it they did, or at least they gave it their best shot. So this next part is all about the seriously clever ways that other philosophers tried to fix this mess, to bring Parmenides' logic back in line with the reality we all experience. So the first big answer came from Empedocles. He basically came along and said, okay, Parmenides, you got a point. You can't get something from nothing. But what if reality isn't just one thing? He proposed that the Arche wasn't a single substance, but 4 eternal roots: fire, air, water, and earth. These things themselves never change, they're always there. So if the roots don't change, how do we get, well, a changing world? Empedocles came up with 2 cosmic forces to explain it: love and strife. It's pretty intuitive. Love is the force that brings the roots together, mixing them up to create things like trees and people. And strife is the opposite. It's the force that pulls them apart, that causes decay and division. So change isn't something appearing from nowhere. It's just the constant mixing and unmixing of these 4 eternal things. And Empedocles had this absolutely beautiful way of explaining it. He compared it to a painter. A painter doesn't invent new colors out of thin air, right? They take a few basic colors on their palette, that's the 4 roots, and by mixing them in different ways, they can create all the amazing images in the world. It was a brilliant way to save reality from Parmenides.
But another thinker, Anaxagoras, he took a different route. He agreed that everything was a big mixture, but he looked up at the stars, at the order of the cosmos, and he wondered, what could have set all this chaos into such a perfect, orderly motion? His answer wasn't a physical force, it was a mental one. He called this force Nous, which is the Greek word for mind. For Anaxagoras, Nous was this supreme intelligence that kicked off the great cosmic spin. It wasn't a god like Zeus throwing lightning bolts. Think of it more like a pure, rational organizing principle that started the whole process of creation. And here's how he put it himself. Once this mind started the motion, things just naturally began to separate out and find their place. It was a totally groundbreaking idea, proposing an intelligent, but not mythological, cause for the universe's structure.
But you know, these kinds of ideas, they could be dangerous back then. Anaxagoras was a big deal in Athens, friends with powerful people, but his rationalism got him in hot water. When he claimed that the sun wasn't the god Helios, but was just a giant fiery rock, well, he was charged with impiety for disrespecting the gods. He actually had to flee the city to avoid being executed. It's a pretty stark reminder that this shift from myth to reason wasn't exactly a safe career path.
So after all that, why does any of this ancient arguing still matter? What's the lasting legacy of these thinkers who were debating all of this thousands of years ago?
Well, you can literally draw a straight line from these early thinkers to pretty much all of Western thought. The guys before Socrates, they set the entire agenda. Thales asked the first scientific question. Parmenides gave us the rigor of pure logic. Empedocles and Anaxagoras built these incredible systems to save reality. And the giants who came next, Plato and Aristotle, they built their entire worldviews trying to answer the very questions these guys first asked.
Look, in the end, Thales was wrong about water, and Empedocles was wrong about his 4 roots. But that's not really the point, is it? Their revolution wasn't in finding the final answers, it was in inventing a whole new way to look for answers. They threw out divine stories and replaced them with natural laws and logical systems. So I'll leave you with this thought. When it comes to understanding our world, what's more important, having all the right answers or being the first one to ask the right questions?